Twin flame, the masculine passed the final test. Union is coming. Have you been feeling that something has shifted lately? A strange sense of peace after months, or even years of emotional chaos. Have the signs become stronger? The synchronicities more frequent? Or perhaps you felt an unexplainable pull in your heart, as if something significant is about to happen. According to many twin flame teachings, these moments can sometimes be interpreted as signs that the divine masculine is approaching or has completed a major stage of inner transformation. Some call it the final test, not a test given by another person, but a test of the soul, a moment where fear is no longer stronger than love, where old wounds no longer control every decision, where the need to run begins to fade, making space for honesty, healing, and growth. In this video, we'll explore what many people in the twin flame community mean when they say the divine masculine has passed the final test, the signs that are often associated with this stage, and why it may represent a profound inner shift. It's important to remember that every relationship is unique. Spiritual beliefs about twin flames vary, and no sign can guarantee a reunion. Healthy relationships are built on mutual respect, communication, and shared commitment. So if you've been wondering whether a new chapter is unfolding in your journey, stay with me until the end, because the signs we're about to discuss might completely change the way you understand transformation, awakening, and what true union really means. Section 1. What is the divine masculine's final test? The words final test carry a sense of mystery. They make it sound as though the twin flame journey has one dramatic moment where everything suddenly changes forever. But according to many spiritual perspectives, the final test isn't a single event. It's a profound inner transformation. It's the moment when the divine masculine reaches a crossroads, a place where they can no longer continue living the way they once did. For much of the twin flame journey, the divine masculine is often described as living between two worlds. One world is built on fear, the other is built on love. One is controlled by the ego, the other is guided by the soul. For a long time, the ego usually feels safer. It says, protect yourself, show your emotions, in control. Don't let anyone see your weaknesses. If love becomes too intense, walk away before you get hurt. These protective beliefs may have developed over many years. Sometimes they were shaped by childhood experiences, sometimes by heartbreak, sometimes by disappointment or emotional pain. Whatever their source, they often become invisible rules that quietly influence every relationship. Then the twin flame connection enters their life, and suddenly those old rules stop working. The connection reaches places inside them that no ordinary relationship ever touched. It awakens emotions they thought they had buried forever. It challenges beliefs they never questioned before. It asks them to become emotionally honest, not only with another person but with themselves. This is why so many people describe the twin flame connection as a mirror. It doesn't simply reflect love, it reflects fear, reflects insecurity, it reflects old wounds, it reflects every part of ourselves that still longs for healing. For the divine masculine, facing this mirror can be incredibly uncomfortable. At first, they may try to escape it. They stay busy, focus on work, distract themselves with responsibilities, convince themselves that life will become easier if they ignore what they're feeling. But some lessons cannot be avoided forever. The more they run from themselves, the louder the call for transformation becomes. Eventually, a moment arrives when the old version of themselves no longer feels sustainable. The masks become exhausting. Pretending everything is fine becomes harder than admitting something needs to change. And this is where many twin flame teachings say the final test truly begins. The test isn't whether they can win someone's love. It isn't whether they can say the perfect words. It isn't whether another person waits for them. The real test is much deeper. Can they choose authenticity over fear? Can they remain emotionally open when every instinct tells them to shut down? Can they take responsibility for their healing instead of blaming circumstances? Can they release the need to control every outcome and trust the process of growth? These are questions that no one else can answer for them. The answers come through actions, through self-reflection, through difficult decisions, through moments when they choose courage over comfort. Many people imagine the final test as something dramatic, but often, the biggest victories happen quietly, choosing to apologize instead of defending the ego, choosing honesty instead of silence, choosing vulnerability instead of emotional distance, choosing growth instead of repeating old patterns. These small decisions gradually reshape a person's life. They become evidence that genuine healing is taking place. Of course, it's important to remember that no spiritual concept can predict the future with certainty. Not every difficult relationship is a twin flame connection. Not every period of separation ends in reunion. And passing a personal milestone doesn't automatically guarantee that two people will come together. A lasting relationship still requires mutual effort, healthy communication, respect, and a shared willingness to build a future together. Yet whether or not reunion happens, the deeper lesson remains powerful. The final test is ultimately about becoming the kind of person who no longer allows fear to make life's biggest decisions, because fear can protect us for a season, but only love can transform us. And according to many twin flame teachings, when the divine masculine finally chooses love, not just for another person but as a way of living, they don't simply pass a spiritual test, they become someone entirely new. Not because they found perfection, but because they stopped running from the truth within themselves. That transformation, more than any external event, is what many believe opens the door to the possibility of true union. Section 2. The signs the divine masculine has passed the final test. So, how do you know when the divine masculine has truly reached this stage of transformation? According to many twin flame teachings, the answer isn't found in dramatic declarations or sudden promises. It's found in consistent interchange, because anyone can say the right words, but lasting transformation is revealed through actions. One of the first signs is that the divine masculine no longer feels the need to run from difficult emotions. Earlier in the journey, fear often controlled their decisions. Whenever the connection became too intense, they pulled away. Whenever vulnerability was required, they built another wall. Whenever love asked them to trust, ego told them to escape. But after deep inner healing, something begins to shift. They stop seeing emotions as enemies. Instead of avoiding discomfort, they become willing to sit with it. Instead of blaming circumstances, they begin taking responsibility for their own healing. This is one of the clearest signs of spiritual maturity. The second sign is that peace replaces confusion. For much of the twin flame journey, the divine masculine may feel trapped between what the heart wants and what the mind fears. One day they feel certain, the next day they question everything. The constant inner conflict creates emotional ups and downs. But once the final test is passed, that conflict begins to quiet, not because every problem disappears, but because they stop fighting themselves. The heart and the mind slowly begin moving in the same direction. This creates a deep sense of inner peace. And from that peace comes clarity. The third sign is accountability. Earlier in the journey, it may have been easier to avoid difficult conversations or ignore unresolved issues, but true awakening brings humility. The divine masculine becomes more willing to admit mistakes, to apologize sincerely, to communicate honestly, and to understand how their actions have affected others. This isn't about guilt, it's about growth, because healing isn't measured by never making mistakes. It's measured by taking responsibility when mistakes happen. Another powerful sign is that external validation begins to lose its grip. For years, success, status, money, or other achievements may have felt like the only way to prove worth. While these goals can still be meaningful, they no longer define identity. The divine masculine begins realizing that real confidence comes from self-acceptance, not from constantly proving themselves to the world. This shift changes everything. Relationships are no longer driven by fear of failure. They're built on authenticity. Perhaps the most beautiful sign is that love no longer feels frightening. Earlier, love may have felt overwhelming. It asked too much. It required vulnerability. It exposed old wounds. But now, love becomes a place of peace instead of pressure. The divine masculine no longer sees emotional openness as weakness. They begin understanding that vulnerability is one of the greatest forms of courage. They become more present, more emotionally available, more willing to express appreciation, affection, and truth. Of course, no one becomes perfect overnight. Awakening doesn't erase every insecurity or guarantee that life will never be challenging again. Every person continues growing throughout life. Healthy relationships still require patience, communication, respect, and consistent effort from both people. And it's important not to assume that every positive change means reunion is certain. Spiritual beliefs about twin flames vary, and real relationships depend on mutual choices, not only inner experiences. Still, many people believe these changes mark an important milestone, because the greatest sign that the divine masculine has passed the final test isn't that they suddenly become flawless. It's that they stop letting fear make their decisions. They choose honesty over hiding, growth over comfort, presence over avoidance, love over ego. And when those choices become a way of life rather than a temporary feeling, something extraordinary happens. The person who once ran from love begins walking toward it, not because someone chased them, not because they were forced, but because, through their own healing, they finally discovered that the life they were searching for was never outside of them. It was waiting within them all along. And according to many twin flame teachings, that inner transformation is what creates the strongest foundation for the possibility of true union. Section 3. Why union becomes possible after the final test there is one question almost everyone asks during the twin flame journey. If the divine masculine has truly passed the final test, does that mean union is finally coming? According to many twin flame teachings, the answer is more meaningful than a simple yes or no. The final test isn't believed to cause union. Rather, it removes the inner barriers that once made a healthy union difficult. For most of the journey, the greatest obstacle wasn't the distance between two people. It was the distance between the divine masculine and their authentic self. When someone is disconnected from their own heart, it becomes difficult to build a deeply connected relationship with another person. This is why so many twin flame teachings focus first on inner healing rather than external outcomes. Because lasting relationships aren't built only on chemistry, they're built on emotional maturity, trust, honesty, respect, and the willingness to grow together. Earlier in the journey, fear often made the decisions. Fear said, don't open your heart. Admit how much you care. Where it's comfortable, protect yourself at all costs. For a while, those beliefs may have created the illusion of safety. But over time, they also created loneliness. The walls that kept pain out also kept love out. Eventually, the divine masculine begins to understand something profound. The greatest risk isn't loving someone deeply. The greatest risk is spending a lifetime never allowing yourself to experience authentic love at all. That realization changes everything. Instead of seeing vulnerability as danger, they begin seeing it as freedom. Instead of viewing commitment as a limitation, they begin seeing it as a conscious choice. Instead of trying to control every outcome, they begin trusting the process of life itself. This shift doesn't happen because another person convinced them. It happens because their own soul becomes impossible to ignore. Many people describe this as the moment when the ego finally stops leading. The heart takes its place. The need to prove becomes the desire to connect. The need to escape becomes the courage to stay. The need to hide becomes the willingness to be fully seen. This is why many believe the energy between the twin flames begins to change. The connection feels lighter, more peaceful, less driven by anxiety, more grounded in acceptance. The constant emotional push and pull begins to soften, not because every challenge disappears, but because both individuals are no longer responding from the same old wounds. They begin responding from greater awareness. However, this is also where an important truth must be remembered. Spiritual growth alone does not guarantee a relationship. Real union requires two people who are both willing and able to choose each other in the present. It requires healthy communication, mutual respect, shared values, accountability, and consistent effort from both sides. No spiritual label can replace these essential foundations. That is why the healthiest understanding of twin flame union isn't waiting for someone else to complete you. It's recognizing that two whole individuals have a greater chance of building a lasting partnership than two people expecting the other to heal them. Perhaps this is the deepest lesson of the final test. The divine masculine doesn't pass because they become perfect. They pass because they stop allowing fear to define their future. They stop running from difficult conversations. They stop hiding behind emotional walls. They stop believing that love must be earned through perfection. Instead, they choose authenticity. They choose responsibility. They choose healing. And most importantly, they choose to live from the heart instead of the ego. According to many twin flame teachings, this is the moment when the possibility of true union becomes stronger than ever, not because destiny forces it to happen, but because the inner conditions that once blocked genuine connection have finally begun to dissolve. And perhaps that's the real meaning of passing the final test. It's not the finish line of the journey. It's the beginning of a chapter where love is no longer driven by fear, where silence is replaced with honesty, where separation gives way to understanding, and where two people, if they both freely choose it, have the opportunity to build a relationship rooted not in illusion, but in truth, not in chasing, but in mutual commitment, not in fear, but in love. If this message resonated with your soul, don't leave just yet. The divine masculine's final test isn't about becoming perfect. It's about choosing love over fear, truth over illusion, and growth over comfort. Whether or not a reunion happens, that inner transformation is one of the most meaningful lessons many people take from the twin flame journey. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next twin flame message. And before you go, the next video on your screen reveals the 7 unmistakable signs that twin flame union is closer than ever. If you've been seeing synchronicities, feeling unexpected peace, or sensing a powerful energetic shift, you won't want to miss it. Click the next video now and continue your spiritual journey with us. Thank you for watching. May your path be filled with clarity, healing, and wisdom. Remember, the most important union you'll ever create is the one with your own soul. I'll see you in the next video.